My favorite medium is music. I love music. I listen to music whenever I can on my way home from work, while I'm at the office until anybody gets here. I put some music into my computer and listen to it. On my way home from work. When I get home from work, I listen to music while I'm doing stuff around the house. One of my favorite things to do is to go and see live music, and even just to sit around the house on a rainy day listening to jazz and reading a book. There's nothing better than that.
The internet. I love to surf the net. I spend as much time surfing the net as I do riding my bike.
The media has been very desirous that a black quarterback do well.
I'm sure he's not the only one that feels that way.
I've seen replay after replay of Limbaugh's comments with my face attached, as well as that of my colleagues. Comments that made us very uncomfortable at the time, although the depth and the insensitive nature of which weren't fully felt until it seemed too late to reply.
Welcome to the YWCA's Boston Youth Voice Collaborative, Changing Channels Youth Forum. Redefine your media mind. Today's an opportunity for you to open up your media mind and change the way that you look at the images that surround you every day. Before we move on with this evening's program, I'm going to give y'all, the audience, a little test. It's called Spot the Stereotype. By the raise of your hands, how many of y'all know what a stereotype is? Holla. Well, for those that don't know what a stereotype is a generalization about a group of people that's not necessarily true. Let's find out if you can guess which one of the people coming out on the stage is a stereotype. Now, let's bring out Eliud.
Yeah. You see me on the train, you see me on the hood. When you see me with that fitted hat, you know I'm dipping from Squale. When you see me with that 5X white tee, you know I'm stashing something. When you see me with that big jacket, you know I got that fire and I got the heat. I don't play that.
Now, let's bring out Monica.
Everybody's doing it. You know what I'm talking about? Sex. It's everywhere. In videos, in movies, shoot, even in the locker room. All my friends are hitting it for sure. Almost all teens are having sex, and if you're not doing it, you're whack.
Now, let's bring out Juan.
Hi, my name is Juan. I'm the Latino of this group. Now, you may not see us Latinos in movies or TV shows unless you're smuggling or dealing drugs. But Latinos are in all professions, and we are the largest minority in America and still growing.
Now, you, the audience, is going to tell me which is the stereotype. By your round of applause, do you think it's Eliud? Do you think it's Monica? Do you think it's Juan? Actually, I'm going to give them a chance, and you're going to hear from them. Eliud, what's the real deal?
Yo, the real deal right here, I'm a senior at Health Careers Academy. That's the Horseman Charter School on N University. Don't get fooled by the gear. But in real life, I don't play that.
Monica, what's up with that stereotype, yo?
Everybody's doing it. Stereotype. No matter what you see on BET or here in the locker room, not all teens are having sex. STDs, the threat of AIDS or pregnancy is on the rise among youth of color. Abstinence is the only safe sex. It's a choice that more teens are making than you think.
Juan, what's going on, yo?
While Latinos maybe Latinos on the rise is the truth. While Latinos may be considered drug dealers and everything, we're still we're only in 5% of crime TV characters, but we're still the largest minority, still growing.
Thank you, Eliud, Monica, and Juan. Now that you know what a stereotype is and you know how you can identify, I am now going to introduce Kevin St. Dick. I'm not done. I wasn't done, bro. I wasn't done, but go ahead.
Hi, my name is Kevin, and I'm a peer leader at YWCA Boston Youth Voice Collaborative. The theme for today's forum is changing channels. We're going to address the way media impacts us as urban teens. I want to start off with the definition. Media is the way that we transmit messages from one person to another. Seems pretty simple, right? But what if you want to reach more than a few people? A whole city, a state, the whole world, or even the whole wide universe? That's where the media that we see comes in. Television, radio, internet, print media like magazines, newspapers, and books that surround us every day with messages telling us who we should be and what we should buy. Think about how much media you use every day. Take a second and count it up. Chances are you use more media than you think. Did you count the billboards on the bus on your way to school or work, or on your music on your headphones? How about the time you spend reading or watching movies or surfing the net? This time really starts to add up. And when you add it to the time that you sleep, it leaves us with not a lot of time when we're not using media. We spend more time using media than we do at school, at work, or even with our own parents. So that's why it's important that we know what we're listening to. We can't escape media, and truth be told, media is an important way that we get our information. How else will we get our research papers done or see places that we've never seen before? That's why it's important for us to understand what we're consuming. All right. Hold up. I want to be real clear about something. I watch television, listen to music too, and there's some media out there that I really love. Understanding media doesn't mean you have to give up your television or stop listening to the music that you love, but we're not here to bash the media. How else are we supposed to get things that we need for our day, like the news? Media is a powerful tool, but like any other tool, it's only as important as how you use it. That's what we're here to do, teach you about media and what you see. In other words, we want to redefine your media mind. So, if you're spending up to 12 hours a day using media, and you see 1,600 ads a day, how much of it really sinks in or affects what you think? So let me test you and see if you've been impacted by media lately. Finish the sentence. Not even asked the sentence yet. All right. You ready? You can find me. All right, I guess that one really sinks in. Hold on. Well, can you hear me now? I guess that one sinks in as well. Whoa, what is this? I guess y'all really know what this one is. It's the Aflac duck. But do any of you use supplemental insurance? Do any of you even know what supplemental insurance is? I'm struggling too. But we all know the name. because media stays with us. The images we see and the words we hear really sink in. Oh, by the way, supplemental insurance covers workers who are unable to work. And if a simple name can stay with you, what about ideas and values that can impact the school you attend, or the community that you live in, or even the way you look at yourself? Media can drive our perception of the world and our place in it. Just think of the opening activity, Spot the Stereotype, the misrepresentation of urban youth as thugs, sex crazy, and drug dealers, when in fact that is not all true, and I bet y'all can all attest to that. Actually, image is not everything, and there are more sides to a person than what you think you see. Media has vilified immigrants and other minorities. Minorities are not represented as valued and important part of our society. Even today, we struggle against images of blacks as lazy, sexualized, and violent. From entertainment to hard news reporting, media still struggles to give minorities equal airtime. The realities of life for people of color in America is still misrepresented by unbalanced reporting. You will see today how media images have kept racist stereotypes, minorities, in people's minds and in their living rooms. By knowing the truth, you will be able to make conscious decisions about what you believe based not on the images that we see, but the realities that we know. So let's get started opening up our media minds and learning new ways to think about and hear and think about what we see around us. So we will now learn about media literacy. So please give a warm welcome for YVC's own, the lovely Miss Jacqueline Walker.
Can I get some respect? Thank you. What's good? My name's Jacqueline. I go to O'Brien High School, and BLS shout out too. Let me tell y'all something. It used to be that being literate meant just being able to read, but now, 2003, the definition of literacy must also include the understanding of the word as well as the image. So much of what we see and hear is a complex combination of words, sounds, images, and signals. Media literacy is the ability to sort out messages in media and understand what's being said. Now, Kev said we're going to teach y'all about media minds, and that's what I'm going to let y'all discuss. Media literacy is the ability to interpret media messages. By knowing and understanding the media around you, you will not only become a more conscious consumer of the media that you use, but you will have a louder voice. No, I'm not talking about that will hear you from here to downtown like some of my friends that I know, but I'm just saying that by having a more effective voice, you will know how you're targeted as a buyer and as a team so that you can use media more effectively when you buy records or when you listen to music. Now, you can use your knowledge of media anywhere. In the morning, brushing your teeth, most of y'all do that, right? Because there's a name on your toothbrush. In the ads, on the trains, at school, and just chilling with your friends. It's a 24/7 thing, media literacy. And I'm about to give you a tool to help you understand media. Here are 5 questions you can use to break down media and find the meaning. First question. Who made this message and what were the producer's goals or motives? Media is a construction created by a person and team of people. They may want you to buy or think something. So think about what motivated the producer to create what you see or hear. Question 2. What lifestyles, values, and points of view are represented in this message? Media does convey messages or else we wouldn't be here. Since it's created by people, someone decides what values or norms will be expressed in a piece and what message the story sends. Question 3. How might other people interpret this message differently from yourself? Everyone does have their own perspective. So media is seen both in the eyes of the creator as well as the eyes of the beholder. How do you view this piece? Anybody? Question 4. What techniques were used to attract your attention, to affect your emotions? Media creators have a big bag of tricks that are supposed to catch your attention and help you see what they want you to see. And question 5 for all the fellas. What's left out of this message, and why was it left out? Well, that's obvious, but sometimes what's not shown is as important as what is shown. Asking these 5 questions can help you decipher the messages you see in TVs, movies, and music. Now that you know these questions, you can use them wherever you go. So they're in your packet. Take them out, use them, and redefine your media mind. Thank you.
Thank you, Jacqueline, for the overview of media literacy and how we can break it down. Now I am going to introduce the Media Mind panel. First, we have Professor Gail Dines, Dr. Jack Levin, and Professor Robert Hilliard. I'm not prepared. That's so stupid. First up, speaking from a Media Mind panel is Gail Dines. Professor Gail Dines is a professor of sociology and women's studies at Wheelock College in Boston. She is a nationally known lecturer on media, pornography, and violence against women. Professor Dines has written and spoken widely on the images of African Americans in the media and presents workshops on unlearning racism. Tonight, she is going to discuss the image of black men from Uncle Tom to the violent man. Let's give a round of applause for Professor Gail Dines.
Hi, everybody. Right, so first of all, the obvious question you've got to ask is, what is a white woman doing talking about black masculinity? Okay? Isn't that a fair question? Well, the truth is, first of all, just to give you some idea of my own background, I'm Jewish, and as you can tell, I was brought up in England. And in England, Jews are not accepted. It's a very anti-Semitic country, and we tended to live very much ghettoized. So I have first-hand experience of what it means not to be part of the mainstream society. Now, also, I study media and how media constructs reality. That means we're not born knowing what we know. As we develop and grow and get socialized by our parents, the school, the friends, and especially the media, we begin to construct in our head notions of how we think the world works. Now, it used to be that schools were thought to be the major place where people learnt about the world. Today, as you can see, more people spend their time watching media than they do going to school. Also, if you want to know what's going on in the world, if you want to know about the spring fashions, if you want to know about which singers to listen to, who are you going to ask, the teacher, or are you going to read the magazines? The magazines, right? So what's happened is that media has replaced education as the main place where you get the information. Now, something else has happened as well in the last 10 to 15 years, really. And what's happened is that our society has moved from a print-based culture to an image-based culture. That means that all the messages, or most of the messages we get now, are through the image, not through the printed word. Now, when you go to school, you learn how to analyze the printed word. You have classes in English literature, you read books, you analyze what's in the books. There's no classes hardly in media literacy. The schools have not kept up with what's going on, which means that although your generation is bombarded with images, you're not taught how to read the images critically. This gives the power to the people who make the images, because they spend an enormous amount of time and energy figuring out ways to target you as an audience. First and foremost, the media exists as a way to get you to buy stuff. That's the role of the media, is to turn you from citizens into consumers. Now, having said that, I want to talk about how do we think about images of black men in this society, and also black women. Well, as one of the speakers says, we think of them in terms of stereotypes. The reason for that is they did a study, and they asked white people, what's one of the major decision factors you make when you're looking for a house to buy? And you know what they said? Where there's no blacks. Right? That's what they found in a study. And in many cities, we live in segregated neighborhoods, especially Boston, as you well know. So most white people really don't know people of color. They don't know them personally. They don't know them as individuals. They don't know them as friends. All they know is what they get from the media. And the media is mainly run by white people. So what happens is white people get a distorted image of black people, totally distorted. And that has an impact on the lives of black people. It affects how black men are seen in our society. It affects the way white women are seen. When I mention the word welfare, what image gets conjured up? Black women. In fact, the average welfare recipient is white, lives in rural America, and has 1.2 children and is on welfare for less than 2 years. But that's not the image you see. The image you see is usually an African American woman living in urban America. When I say drug dealer, what's your image? Right, and in fact, most of the drug problems are in middle-class white suburban neighborhoods. Right, now in our culture, we don't say black and white. What we say is, instead of saying black, they use the word inner city or welfare. And instead of saying white, they use the word middle class. You can be really poor and white, right? You can live in a trailer park, earn next to nothing, be on welfare, and you still think of yourself as middle class because you're white. Right? No, really, a lot of my students do think like that. And that's because the media has used these as code words. Instead of saying black and white, it's now welfare versus the middle class. And also what's happened in our society is they've made out that the problems economically with this country are that blacks and other people of colour are bleeding dry the welfare system, when in fact what's bleeding dry this culture is all the money that's going to the military and all the money that's going to the rich, right? But you're never going to hear that, right? You're never going to hear that. All you're going to get are stories about how some black woman had 9 children and managed to get thousands and thousands of dollars through welfare, which of course very rarely happens. Now, when you think about stereotypes of African Americans, you really have to go back to the politics of slavery, because many of the stereotypes you see today actually were born in the politics of slavery. They've changed, but they have some of the essences that come straight from those days. Now, for African American men, the major 2 stereotypes have been the Uncle Tom image versus what we call the buck image. Now, the Uncle Tom image, which you've often seen, is the older, grey-haired black man shuffling along. He's the good black. He's the good black because he understands that whites should be in power. He's happy to serve whites, right? Now, the fact is, this is a lie. And the other thing is that in reality, it's a lie because the average man, black male on the plantation, lived till he was 35 because he was either beaten to death or worked to death. So you didn't have many older men walking around. But the Uncle Tom is this image of this happy older man glad to serve blacks. Now, the other, glad to serve whites, sorry. The other image is the image of the bad black, the one who doesn't understand that whites should be in power. And this has now become the dominant image in our media. You can turn on the TV set at any major news channel, and one of the stories is often seeing a black man handcuffed being led into a courthouse. Why is it that the cameras are in Roxbury or Dorchester and not in Wellesley? Why aren't you seeing white men being dragged into Wellesley courts? Why is it it's always outside courts? Now, also what's very important is to recognise something else, is that when black men do something wrong, as in the Mike Tyson case, as in the O.J. Simpson case, Kobe Bryant case, it becomes a big media issue, right? The media turn it into a big issue. When white men do something wrong, it's normally shoved under the carpet. For example, I want to just see if you know this. There's a man, a very, very famous man, and he's been in court for beating up a prostitute to the point that she's now almost brain dead. She's being sued. He's being sued by her. There's a white man, an actor, very famous, who beat a prostitute recently to a pulp. She's suing him. There's been court cases. It was headlines in the newspaper when I was in England. Yet when I came back here, it wasn't mentioned. Do you know who that man is? Jack Nicholson. Yes. Right? And I even have the court papers that I downloaded from the internet. It's public knowledge. But the media have kept it quiet. Now, what I want to do to show you how the media works in demonizing black men is I want to show you a short clip from a movie called Grand Canyon. Anyone seen that movie, Grand Canyon? A few of you. Okay, this is a really important clip. So if you could show the clip, please, of Grand Canyon. He's just been to a baseball game and he's on his way home.
Missiles can accomplish at a cheaper price and with greater accuracy and fewer casualties the mission that a pilot was supposed to carry out and did in previous wars. And the Air Force is very resistant to change.
Dad should be home soon. The game just ended.
I thought you were studying for your English exam.
I was. I had the game on the radio. Oh, can you pick me up tomorrow at 4:30?
4:30, behind the school. I thought you were going to get a ride occasionally.
I try. It's just really hard to arrange to leave at exactly the same time with someone.
It's just really hard for me to arrange my whole afternoon around picking you up. I'm working at the senior center tomorrow.
If you can't do it, I can try to find a ride. It's kind of late, but... Thanks. Mom, I think you need to get organized.
Plenty of that and much more. So at the party, Red is controlling the floor. Let you step and do your dance routine. It ain't a dream, my man. Get a gangster scene with a villain. Doing damage on a 24 track. With confusion, a finish by conclusion. A rhythmatic rhymes from a radio cat. You can't get right, because I'm taking it right back.
Desperate band.
Send lawyers, guns, and money. Fuck. Shit has hit the fan. God. All right, all right. No. Shh. God. Fuck. Fuck. Fuck.
Yeah, I need road service for, I don't know, let's say Inglewood. Hello? God. Yeah, Buckingham. But remember, it's about a half mile, west, I guess, of there. I understand, but see, if it takes that long, I might be, like, dead. Police. Oh, shit. No, nothing's happened. Just get the truck here as fast as you can. Mayday, Mayday, we're going down.
Hey man, you need some help here? This is a nice car, mister. This is one of them new Jap cars.
Yeah.
Yeah, you need some help. Oh yeah, there's a Jap car.
Thanks. No, I've already called for the tow truck and the police.
You called the police? What? On that phone there, you called all those people? Who else you call, your mama?
He been busy, man. You know, this is a nice car, mister. I could use me a car with a phone in it. Maybe you want to get a ride somewhere or something. You want to jump start or something? Yeah, man. How about a jump start?
Ooh, he nervous, y'all. What you so nervous about, man?
Maybe he carrying, Jim. Maybe he's scared we gonna bust him.
Bust his ass.
Leave that man alone!
Okay, Grandma. Whatever, baby. Why don't you get out of the car, mister? You want me to have Jimmy take you out of there? Or how about this? Do you ever want to get out of that car again?
Look, what do you want? You want my wallet? You want my watch? It's a shitty watch. You're welcome to it.
What I want is you get out of the car.
Come on, let's get this shit over with.
Now, motherfucker.
Which one of you called for the truck?
Me, that was me. This is it. It just sort of died on me here. I'm the one that called.
Bit off now.
I guess it was you, huh?
Yeah.
Okay.
Hey,
right, I can't show you more, but eventually, well, we'll discuss that in a minute. Right, now, first of all, what's the problem with that clip? What's he scared of? Right, so first of all, what happens is he's scared of black men. Now, what the people who created this film knew is that you didn't have to have a sign hanging around the black men's neck saying danger, right? They knew that a predominantly white audience, just by virtue of seeing black men, would be scared. They knew that that white people had been socialised well enough to be scared. What would have happened if 4 white men would have gotten out of that car in business suits? It would have been a completely different scene. Now, how did you know there was trouble in the air? The first thing you heard that you knew there was trouble in the air was rap music, right? That's how they've also demonized the rappers. You heard the rap music before you actually saw the young 4 African-American males. Sign, rap equals blacks equals trouble. When in fact we know that over 60% of rap is bought by whites, okay? Now the other issue, which is interesting, okay, is that he's out, and what you see is in the home a good white suburban family. Right? Notice the image of the mother getting organized. She's got everything under control. Not only that, she's a good mother. First of all, she knows her son has an exam the next day, so she's involved in his life. And when he tries to badger her into getting a ride, all she has to do to discipline him is lift an eyebrow. And he immediately shuts up. So here you have this nice white family, all intact. Meanwhile, what you have going on a few miles down the road is this disorganized black community with young white men, not in school, not studying for exams, but just roaming around looking for trouble. Now, notice when the black woman shouts out, "Leave that man alone," do they show her any respect? No. Right? So the difference between the way that black women are portrayed and white women are portrayed is that white women are given respect, whereas black women are shown that they can't control their males. They cannot control their young males. The other issue is, where are the mothers of these young males? Probably out looking for crack, according to these producers and directors, okay? You don't see any families for blacks. Now, this is a constant in the media, is that you tend to see blacks as outside of the family situation. Now, the other interesting factor is who comes to his rescue? Danny Glover. Because what the film didn't want was to be called racist. So what they do is they bring in the good black, who then tells the bad blacks how to behave, which is what the scene is after that. Anyone got any other thoughts on this? On what you just saw? Speak a bit louder. Grand Canyon. He's saved by a white, with a black male in cowboy boots. How many black men do you know wear cowboy boots? Right? What else? Anything else you noticed? What, sorry? Shh, I can't hear, yeah? Speak louder. We mean with the black as the good black, and yeah, exactly. So what you have here is, just from a short clip, really shows you the way in which black men and black women have been demonized. Now, this has a horrible impact on the lives of people of color. It affects the way the police deals with African Americans. It's no surprise that more African American males are in prison than they are in college, because you've got policemen who believe that black men are, by their very definition, violent. Right? You also, the case here, the very famous case of the Charles Stewart case, who shot his wife and then said it was a black man. It doesn't matter that it wasn't a black man. They managed to find one within 48 hours. Okay? It doesn't matter that that wasn't a black man who shot him. So what I want to say is that whites are constantly being banged over the head with these stereotypes, and they begin to believe them. The messages that you have to give out is that this is a lie, that this is not what African Americans are about, that white society has no right to construct images of you in this way, and that you have to go out there and fight to get control of the media in order to represent your life as it really is, rather than as they represent it. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Professor Gail Dines, for one of the most interesting presentations I saw. Next up to the podium is Dr. Jack Levin, who is the Brunick Professor of Sociology and Criminology and Director of the Brunick Center on Violence and Conflict at Northeastern University. He has authored and co-authored 24 books, including Hate Crimes Revisited. Dr. Levin has published more than 150 articles in professional journals. Tonight, Dr. Levin is going to discuss violence and racial representation in the media. Let's please give Dr. Levin a round of applause.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here this evening and see so many people. Now, before I begin, and I only have a few minutes, and I don't want to run over, I'm sure you feel the same way, I want to clear the air so that you can pay attention to what I have to say. I want to make sure that you're not distracted by what I look like. I want you to be able to focus on what I have to say to you right now. So let's get it over. How many of you think I look like Albert Einstein? Raise your hand. Well, you and about 8 million other people have stopped me to tell me that, so I don't know whether it's true. But I'll tell you, I do have a long list of lookalikes, including Albert Einstein. I'm not going to go over all of them. It would bore you too much. But a few weeks ago, I went into a supermarket, Shaw's. Have you ever heard of it? Oh, hey, I saw you there. Went to Shaw's, and I was in the parking lot actually, and there was a little girl about 8 years old, and she was holding hands with her mother, and she looked up at me, and then she looked at her mother, and she shouted, "Look, Ma, there goes Beethoven!" And, I know what Beethoven looks like. I don't look anything like Beethoven. And then I was talking to a friend of mine, at least I thought he was my friend, and he said, maybe she meant that dog in the movie? Yes, we don't talk anymore. I don't mean the dog. I mean my friend, ex-friend. Anyway, Professor Dines had so many good points. I want to focus on one. We don't have a cross-section, a representative slice of reality in our friends, in our family, in the people that we see every day. In fact, the people that we see on a regular basis are quite biased as a sample of the United States or of the world's population. And so we can focus on what we see every day and mistakenly generalize to what we don't see every day and get it all wrong. We can be completely wrong because we're basing what we think the world is like on our own friends, on our own relatives, on the people we see on a regular basis. So I'm going to ask you to take this exam. I'm going to ask you to answer the questions by raising your hands, all right? Please do not shout out the answer, okay? Are you ready for this? Good. How many, what percent of all the people in the United States are black or African American? Now, don't answer. Okay, I'm going to give you this is a multiple choice. What percentage of all the people in the United States, all Americans, are black or African American? How many people think it's 50% or more? In other words, half or more of all Americans are black. Okay, I don't see any hands. Oh, yes, I see 1, 2, 3, 4. It's hard to see everybody, but yes, about 10 people. 40 to 50% are black or African American. Oh, there are about 20 people. 30 to 40%. I see another 25 people or so. 20 to 30%. That's a lot of people. I would say maybe 50. 10 to 20%. Well, we're going to stop here because the answer is 12.8%. That's right. About 12 out of every 100 Americans regard themselves as black or African American. What about Latinos? Okay, what percent? Do you think that half of all Americans are Latino? About 10 people think so. 40 to 50% of all Americans are Latino. 15, 20 people. 30 to 40% of all Americans are Latino. Maybe 15, 20, 25 people. 20 to 30%. That seems to be the majority. 10 to 20%? Oh, quite a number, 15, 20. You're right. It's about 13%. Yep. The fastest growing minority group in the United States, Latino Americans. And Asians represent about 3%, another very fast growing minority in this country. What about Jews? What percentage of all Americans are Jewish? Okay, are you ready? How many people think that half of all Americans are Jewish? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 40 to 50% of all Americans are Jewish. 1, 2, 3, maybe 7 people. 30 to 40% of all Americans are Jewish. Anybody? Yes, I see a few people. There you are. 20 to 30% of all Americans are Jewish. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Oh, quite a few over here. 10 to 20% of all Americans are Jewish. Maybe 50 people. 5 to 10%. About 10 people. Anybody less than 5%? You're right. It's 2.1%. Yeah, that's right. About 2.1%. 2 out of every 100 Americans are Jewish. Now, here's my point. If you were born and raised in Washington, D.C., you'd swear that 60 or 70% of the people in the United States are black or African American because that's what you see every day. If you were born in New York City, you'd think maybe 30% of all Americans are Jewish because that's what you see every day. If you were born and raised in San Antonio, Texas, where I was last week, you'd swear that 70% of all Americans are Latino because about 65 to 70% of all the people in San Antonio are Latinos. And if you were Asian and you grew up in Chinatown, you might have quite a different view of the people in this country. And that's the problem. We generalize from what we see, this biased sample, to what we don't see. And the reason it's biased is because we separate ourselves. As Professor Dines pointed out, we separate ourselves in terms of race. You know, all you have to do is go to any college cafeteria, and I'm sure high school will do it as well. Go to any college cafeteria where there's some diversity, and you'll see all the black kids sitting at one table. And you know what I'm talking about, Latinos in this one, Asians over here, whites over there. And by the way, you could break down the whites. You'd probably find that the Irish Americans are at one table, Italian Americans at another, Jewish Americans at another. And then don't forget the Asian students who are over here and the international students who are at another table in the next room. Well, as a result, because we have such a biased view of reality, we have to depend on education to put things in perspective and give us an idea of what reality is all about. But we can't really compete in education with the media because people spend, as Professor Dines pointed out, so much time every day watching television, listening to music, getting involved in popular culture. And, you know, popular culture gives us the basic data about what our society is like. And before I tell you about that, I have to say that mass culture, music and popular art and television and motion pictures, well, they're very entertaining. And that's why they are potentially so dangerous. You know, we don't feel like we're being manipulated. When we watch something on television, we say, well, we're only being entertained. And while we're laughing at that situation comedy, we are being sold a bill of goods. Oh, it's not the intention of the writer or the producer to sell us this bill of goods, but we're learning a lot of things anyway. And we're learning them at the edges, at the margins, at the periphery, but they still affect us in important ways. Millions of Americans have accepted as fact what they see on television. Many Americans do not know the difference between fantasy and reality. It is absolutely amazing. For example, I once talked, you know Days of Our Lives? You know, it's a soap opera at 1 o'clock on Channel 7. I've been watching it for many years. I'm a soapaholic. Anyway, when I watch it, I noticed I had a chance once to talk to some of the actors on Days of Our Lives, and I asked them, I said, hey, what happens when there's a wedding on Days of Our Lives? Do you ever get any gifts for the bride and groom? Yeah, hundreds of gifts for the bride and groom. I'm not kidding you. When one of the actors is killed off because they can't renegotiate his contract and they want him out of the script, that happened recently on Days of Our Lives to Jack, in case you're following along. But anyway, you know, when that happens and there's a funeral, you know, nobody is dead. But the deceased gets thousands of condolence cards. I mean, these are adults. We're not talking about children. We're talking about presumably normal adults who know the difference between reality and fantasy. Or do they? No, they don't. And so what we see on television could potentially have a profound effect on how we see the world. And it turns out that on television, the people who are on most are white, young, people who have a lot of money, like the people on Days of Our Lives, and you'll find relatively few females, except in Days of Our Lives. About half the characters are women, but I'm talking now about prime time television, okay, 8 o'clock and afterwards. In situation comedies, dramatic series, you'll find mostly men. You'll find few women. You'll find few people of color. You'll find few people in the lowest income groups, and you'll find very few people over 60. And so, if you were being dropped here from Mars, and you didn't know anything about this country, you'd think there were very few people of color, very few women, very few people over 60, and very few poor people. And as a matter of fact, those people who watch a lot of television underestimate the amount of poverty in this country. They overestimate the number of white people, the number of Americans in the world, the males in the population, the amount of violence there is in society, because that's exactly what they see every night on the tube. But I have to tell you that this is a much more serious problem than just telling us what the world looks like. And people of color are at a serious disadvantage if they compare themselves with the beautiful characters that they see on television and in motion pictures. Because let's face it, it is still true, even in the year 2003, that the standard of beauty still favors white, blonde-haired, blue-eyed women. And that may not be fair, but it's true. And as a result, women of color can often find themselves feeling down on themselves in comparison with this one standard of beauty that Americans seem to have. Isn't it a shame? There's so many beautiful women of color. There's so many beautiful Asian women and black women and Latino women and white women. There are so many beautiful people in this world, and yet we have only one standard of beauty, and that's the one that we push on television and in motion pictures. How ridiculous. And finally, I just want to say one other thing. I don't have much time, and I got to go catch the commuter rail. But but I did want to say this. I think it's important that part of the problem is that popular culture has gotten so nasty. It's gotten so nasty. It's not just racism. It's not just gender bias. It's much broader than that. Have you ever noticed this, that nowadays you look at the cover of People magazine and you see so many killers on the cover? That was not true 20 years ago. Now, you know, we put all kinds of killers and rapists on the cover of celebrity magazines. We put killers on trading cards where we used to put baseball players. And instead of the batting averages, we put their body counts on the back. There are now Ted Bundy T-shirts, Jeffrey Dahmer T-shirts, Unabomber T-shirts. There's a Ted Bundy doll. There's a book that you can buy in Barnes & Noble that was written by a serial killer and his killer groupie, and it's like a bestseller. He also has a website. There's a Jeffrey Dahmer comic book. Yeah. So, and when you look at wrestling, have you seen professional wrestling lately? I mean, it's a lot of fun. Well, I know you like it. But, before the 1990s, professional wrestling was a morality play. It was the good guy against the bad guy. It was good against evil. That was before Hulk Hogan was caught on steroids. Now, all of a sudden, it's one evil person fighting another evil person. It's like the physical version of the Jerry Springer show. And I was on Jerry Springer 4 times, by the way. But don't tell anybody because it'll impair my credibility. Anyway, so popular culture looks more and more like Fear Factor, filled with sadism and nastiness toward other people. I think, in closing, that it's fine to say we have to be more educated viewers. We have to use the mass media in a more savvy way. But I have to say that we can't let the producers off the hook. Seems to me that those people behind the scenes who produce this garbage have got to feel more of a sense of social responsibility. And if they won't, then we've got to boycott them. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Jack Levin. Next up, we have Professor Robert Hilliard. Professor Hilliard is currently a professor of media arts at Emerson College, where he previously served as Dean of Graduate Studies, Dean of Continuing Education, and Chair of the Division of Mass Communications. Among the 30 books he's authored and co-authored are Waves of Rancor, Tuning in the Radical Right. His career in communications have been devoted to the application of the media to world peace, equal rights, and opportunity in civil justice. Tonight, he is going to discuss stereotype and behavior and what we can do to make a difference. Let's please give a round of applause for Professor Hilliard.
My mother must have written that introduction. Those are a couple hard acts to follow. I should have brought my guitar. I feel kind of like Jack Levin does, wondering what you're going to think about the way he looks. I feel that way too. Different reason. I'm supposed to talk here today, I thought, about the impact of the media and portrayals in the media of African American youth. Well, I'm not African American, and I'm not young, and there should be a young person of color standing up here talking to you about this. I will say, though, that I do envy that wonderful head of hair that he's got, as mine keeps disappearing. Okay, you're stuck with me for about 8 to 10 minutes. And I'm not going to repeat the kinds of things you've already heard about the portrayals of people of color and so-called other minorities in the media. Maybe I can tell you a little bit about possible solutions. Let me tell you first, a friend of mine, teachers at UMass Boston, gave the class an assignment. Each student took a Boston neighborhood and then analyzed the reportage in the newspapers about that neighborhood. Roxbury got a lot of coverage, but only the negative things, mostly crime. Nothing about the good things, nothing about health clinics or housing developments or youth groups helping others or new parks or anything of that sort. What's the impact? One example. A friend of mine lives in Roxbury, works in Waltham at a job that keeps her there fairly late at night. Her co-workers keep asking her, how can you go home at night? Aren't you afraid? The picture they get from the media. I live in Central Square in Cambridge. My neighborhood is multicultural and predominantly black. You know, some of my colleagues I teach with who live out in the suburbs have never accepted invitations to visit me. They believe what they see in the media about a black or predominantly black neighborhood. They believe the stereotypes. Incidentally, the crime rate in my neighborhood is much less than it is in the fancy Harvard Square area. The media have contributed to this stereotype, and the stereotype has unfairly and sometimes irretrievably harmed young people of color. I've seen it, and some of you have experienced it. You know, walking with some friends in a predominantly white neighborhood, some white people look at you funny, sometimes cross the street thinking somehow you're going to do something to them. They wouldn't do that with a bunch of white kids. Films and television have contributed to this. You know, at one time, there were no African Americans or Latinos or other people of color on TV or film except in highly stereotyped roles. Most of you are too young to remember that. It changed. It changed because there were a few people, like Bill Cosby, who made a change. But look what's happened. While now you see a fair number, a little bit more than there were before, of blacks and Latinos in non-stereotyped roles on TV and in the movies, more and more we're getting back to the stereotype. The buffoon or the clown in a so-called family sitcom, or the drama, where blacks and Latinos are always the gangsters. There is a self-fulfilling prophecy. Ever hear the term self-fulfilling prophecy? Okay. There are studies that show that children of a given race or gender or religion or ethnicity who see themselves portrayed over and over again in certain stereotype roles in the media, in many cases, begin to accept those roles. That's what's expected of them. Who perpetuates these stereotypes? The owners of the media, the ones who could change it. You know that 98% of the media programming in the United States are controlled by 6 companies, like Disney, GE, Time Warner, Rupert Murdoch and Fox, Viacom. I have a book here. If you're interested in this kind of thing, read it. Called Screened Out, How the Media Control Us and What We Can Do About It. Screened Out. And it tells you exactly what these big media have been doing in terms of the harmful stereotypes and what we can do about it. I'm going to try to tell you a few things maybe we can do about it. Would you believe that 30 years ago there was a breakthrough in this kind of thing? You all know about Martin Luther King Jr.'s role. There was some progress made in media portrayals of African Americans. This came from 2 cultural and political revolutions, One was the Civil Rights Revolution, 1960s, a long time ago. And the other was a counterculture youth revolution, the 60s and 70s. It came about because the people who cared took strong, united action, stood up against the racists. For example, we had organizations like the Black Panthers. Any of you ever heard of them? Right. They were making progress into providing equal opportunities, not only for blacks, but for all people of color, until the establishment didn't like what they were doing. And as some of you know, the FBI went in and assassinated their leaders in Chicago. What do we do now? Hey, we can be cool, right? Sit back. Hey, what can we do? Nothing. Can't get involved. We can't change anything, right? We're only one person. Well, maybe we can do something. You know, about 30 years ago, the Federal Communications Commission enacted affirmative action rules, that term affirmative action, that for the first time opened the doors of television and radio companies to people of color and women. Gave them jobs. It pushed for the hiring of more performers in non-stereotype roles. But in the years since then, those rules have been emaciated, principally through the 8 years of the presidency of Ronald Reagan. And right now, what do we got right now? We have in our present government in Washington taking a strong stand against affirmative action. They're trying to make it a dirty word. Can we do anything? Can we change that? Well, we can get involved. We can get involved in a lot of ways. Who changes these things? Our so-called leaders, the people we elect to office, to the presidency, to the Senate, to the Congress, to our city councils, and to our local school boards. We can make sure that those people do not get elected or re-elected to continue what many of us would feel are racist policies. And that includes their cooperation with the media that are owned by their equally powerful, rich friends. And if any of you have been reading newspapers lately, you know that the present administration in Washington has been giving more and more power to the media by giving them bigger and bigger monopolies. Okay, what can we do? Most of you are too young to vote, right? So, hey, sit back, be cool, can't do anything. And anyway, all politicians are the same, right? They're not. You can make a choice. Too young to vote? Hey, you can get out and you could hold a sign at a rally. You can distribute leaflets. You can address letters. You can go out and distribute buttons. Pick out the person who agrees with you. Pick out the person who is against racism, or at least will try to eliminate the kind of racism and stereotypes we get in the media and other places. We just got to get off our, shall I call it, fat apathies and get out and do something. I can do it.